make sure to join me and special guest Aaron Wilson next Wednesday, April 16th at 5 p.m. Central Time. We will be doing a pre-draft live special, answering your questions, breaking down some of the top prospects for your Houston Texans, and just talking everything NFL draft. So if you want the latest up-to-date information around your Houston Texans, and you want to ask me or Aaron Wilson some questions surrounding the 2025 NFL Draft, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and tap in next Wednesday for our pre-draft special live show. Coming up on today's show, the NFL Draft Holy Bible, The Beast by Dane Brugler, has just dropped. And I know a lot of people, I think, most average fans of the NFL, they know Mel Kiper, right? All of y'all know Mel Kiper. But for NFL draft experts, for people who cover the NFL Draft year after year, The Beast by Dane Brugler is one of the most important pieces of text, one of the most important articles that you can read surrounding the NFL Draft and all the prospects that go along with it. We're going to be breaking down Brugler's top 10 rankings for every single position and talking about some of the guys that the Texans have already met with or could possibly draft in the 2025 NFL Draft. So if you want to know everything around the Beast, we got you covered here. I want you to go down and like today's video if you are a Texans fan, and let me know, what year did you become a fan of the team? I was born in 1996, so I guess I can say, since the inception of the Houston Texans, I've been a fan. But let me know, how long have you been covering the Houston Texans? How long have you been a fan of the Houston Texans out there? I'll be looking down in the comment section. So on today's video, we're going to start off with the offense. On the offensive side of the ball, I'm just going to go through every single position, Brugler's top 10 rankings for those guys, and then you'll also see in parentheses next to each guy is the projected round that Brugler has them going in, or I guess the round grade that he would give all of these guys. First, let's look at quarterbacks. I know the Texans don't necessarily need a quarterback in this draft, but here are Brugler's top 10 guys. Cam Ward, number 1, Shedeur, Jackson Dart, Tyler Shough, the 4th ranked quarterback on this list, Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers, Kyle McCord, Will Howard, Dylan Gabriel, and Riley Leonard. The one guy I want to focus on in this list, and if you've been watching my show this week, I've been talking about him, Tyler Shough, 4th ranked quarterback, a 2nd round grade for Shough. Very interesting. And we always know, even if a quarterback has a 2nd round grade, I would say more often than not, quarterbacks get bumped up a little bit. If they have a 2nd round grade, they usually go at the end of round 1. The Texans happen to have a pick at the end of round 1 at pick 25, so it's a very good possibility that a team could be calling Nick Caserio when the Texans are on the clock, looking to draft a guy like Tyler Shough. Now, let's go into some more positions that the Texans could possibly draft. Let's look at the running back group. Dane Brugler's top 10 right here. No surprise, Ashton Jeanty, number 1. He actually has Ashton Jeanty as his 3rd ranked prospect in this class. Some interesting names on here. Jordan James at number 7 and Dylan Sampson at number 6. Kind of surprised me a little bit. Tootin at 10 and Etienne at 9. RJ Harvey at 8. The back end of this list surprises me a little bit. And the Texans actually have already visited with the 3rd ranked quarterback on Brugler's list right here, Caleb Johnson. They have a 2nd round grade on him, 1,500 yards this past year for Iowa. Very interesting right there. And I talked about it on my show earlier this week of, could Johnson possibly be an end of round 1 guy? I really hope the Texans aren't targeting him at pick 25, even though I do think he's a very talented running back. I think the Texans have holes somewhere else. But Caleb Johnson has met with the Texans. Some other guys that have met with the Texans. Brashard Smith, running back from SMU. He was the 18th ranked running back on Brugler's big board. 4th/5th round grade. This is the sweet spot for me for a running back for the Houston Texans. And if you watched my videos in the past, you want to check out my running back rankings, I actually put out my top 10. Brashard Smith was my number 1 running back the Texans should draft in this year's class based on where he's going to go. Probably the 4th and 5th round. He's a 4.3 guy, a speedster. I think that pairs perfectly with what you have with Joe Mixon. Either a Brashard Smith, the 18th ranked running back in Brugler's big board, or maybe Jaden Blue, the 21st ranked running back on Brugler's big board, a 5th-round grade right here. I think both these guys, if you can get them in the 4th or 5th round, would be a perfect fit for what the Texans need in this 2025 NFL draft. Let's go on to the wide receivers. Maybe one of the biggest needs for the Houston Texans in this draft class. I would say offensive line, wide receiver, probably 1 and 2 for the needs right here. T-Mac, Teteroa McMillan, the top-ranked wide receiver on Brugler's big board. Then he has Matthew Golden, Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka, Jalen Noel, who Mel Kiper recently mocked to the Houston Texans in round 2, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Royals, Trey Harris, Jack Besh, and Isaiah Bond. That's surprising a little bit to have him as the 10th best wide receiver, a speedster out of Texas. But the person I want to focus on is actually Jalen Royals, because I think this is kind of the, Joker / unknown Pandora's box of this draft, a smaller school guy from Utah State. And I think a lot of people don't know where exactly Jalen Royals is going to go. I've seen him anywhere, early 2nd round, to some people having him a 4th round grade. 7th ranked wide receiver, according to Brugler, a 2nd, 3rd round grade. I think he is a boomer bust prospect that if he hits, if he goes to the right situation, to the right team, he can definitely flourish as a 2nd or 3rd option his rookie season in the NFL. Let's talk about some guys that the Texans have met with, though. They obviously are looking at Golden, which that might be a pipe dream for him, being the 2nd-ranked wide receiver on Brugler's big board, and I think a lot of teams have him pretty highly ranked on their big boards as well. Let's talk about Kyle Williams, though, the 12th-ranked wide receiver on this Brugler big board. The Beast has him as a 12th-ranked wide receiver and a 3rd-round grade, somebody who a lot of Texans fans are very high on because he's visited with the Houston Texans, put up insane numbers at Washington State, and it was actually one of Cam Ward's number 1 options while he was the quarterback there. Very intriguing prospect, a guy who could take the top off of the defense as well. Kyle Williams, another guy who I thought was pretty interesting as well. Right behind Kyle Williams, they had Torrey Horton, ranked as the 13th best wide receiver in this draft class, a 3rd / 4th round grade on him. And I know the numbers, you're like, 26 receptions, 353 yards. He was hurt this season. That's going to be a big ding on him. The fact that he didn't really play that much this past year, but the 2 years prior, over 1,000 yards receiving from Horton, was one of the guys this past offseason where a lot of big schools were trying to throw some NIL money at Horton to get him to transfer. Didn't succumb to that side. No, I want to stay here. I want to finish what I built here at Colorado State. Kind of sucks that he didn't end up, having that go through, having that, dream go to fruition. But I still think he is a sneaky round 3, round 4 wide receiver that, into the right system, can be very productive his rookie season. Let's look at the tight ends now. New Texans OC Nick Caley. He's a tight end coach. He's a tight end guy. So, of course, all of us Texans fans are looking at some of the top tight ends in this draft class. Here's the top 10 from Brugler. He goes Warren, Loveland, Taylor, Arroyo, Ferguson, Bannon Jr., Helm, Aronde Gadsden as the 8th best tight end, Mitchell Evans, and Jake, Brenningstool from Clemson. I want to talk about Elijah Arroyo, though, the 4th-ranked tight end, 2nd-round grade for Dane Brugler. Texans recently brought in Arroyo for a visit, and I know a lot of people are talking about the Texans possibly drafting a tight end. Look, 2nd, 3rd round, I think that's a little bit too rich for me, but maybe if a guy like Arroyo falls to them in the 3rd round, they would really like that. I know a lot of teams are high on Arroyo. I know a lot of teams are also high on the kid out of Oregon, Ferguson. So possibly one of these tight ends falling down the board. Those were the top 10, though, ranked by Brugler. Now, coming up, maybe the reason why you clicked into today's show, and I know a lot of Texans fans are going to want to be locked in for this next part, the offensive line rankings, the biggest need for your Houston Texans this offseason. We'll break down all of Brugler's offensive line rankings in just a moment. But before we get into that, couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our amazing sponsors over at GameTime. Get started today with the official ticketing partner of Texans Today and Chat Sports. Where are my basketball fans at? Where are my baseball fans at? You want to go to a Rockets or an Astros game? Well, you need one app downloaded and one app only. That is GameTime. Tickets get a drop as we get closer to the event, and You can get great deals on last-second tickets and even see your seat view before you buy the tickets. All-in prices show you what you pay without hidden fees or expenses. And GameTime, they have zone deals. You pick the section, GameTime picks the seats for an average savings of 18%. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets today with our friends over at GameTime. And like I said, whether you want to go to a Rockets playoff game or maybe an Astros game, the season has just started. I know it's been a rough go to start for the Astros, but hey, maybe I can't call it Dakin Park. Maybe if you want to go to the formerly named Minute Maid Park, you can get those tickets with our friends over at GameTime. And they have an amazing feature called the GameTime Picks feature. This basically filters out all the fluff and shows you the very best deals on the app, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. It shows you the best bang for your buck. Download the GameTime app today, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Download GameTime today. What time is it? It is game time. Now, let's go into the offensive tackles. This is where it gets a little bit interesting, in my opinion. Will Campbell, Armin Mimbu, no surprise there. 1 and 2 on the offensive tackle rankings for Dane Brugler. Josh Simmons comes in third. Josh Conerly, who has been mocked to the Texans multiple times. Ariante Ursery from Minnesota. Donovan Jackson. He has him as an offensive tackle here. Very interesting. Number 6, Ozzie Trapillo, Charles Grant, Anthony Belton, and Chase Lunt. The Texans have met with Chase Lunt. They've also met with Charles Grant. They've also met with Josh Conerly Jr., the 4th-ranked offensive tackle, a first/second round grade. And look, I've become more okay with the idea of the Texans going with a guy like Josh Conerly Jr. in round 1 at pick 25. He's definitely been getting a lot of first-round buzz, and I'd be surprised if he makes it out of the first round with how much NFL teams need offensive tackle help, offensive tackle depth. He seems like a pretty good option there in round 1 if the Texans want to go that way, even though I prefer them maybe going with a guy on the interior instead. Something that kind of maybe surprised me a little bit was this guy right here, Ariante Ursery from Minnesota. 12 games played, 77.4 PFF grade, 1 sack allowed. He is the 5th-ranked offensive tackle according to Brugler, a second-round grade. Maybe the Texans look at somebody like him in round 2. Very interesting, in my opinion, that he is ranked above Donovan Jackson. And just the fact that Donovan Jackson is actually an offensive tackle here, because he talks about that Donovan Jackson's tackle tape looks much better than his tape at guard. That might be the case. I think he fared pretty well at guard. But he started his entire career at Ohio State at the guard position. He moved to left tackle only because Josh Simmons got injured and the team absolutely needed him to move out there. I don't think it's fair necessarily ranking him as an offensive tackle, where I think most teams would view Donovan Jackson as kind of that positional flex of a guard that can play tackle or a tackle that plays guard. I guess I see where he is, putting him as an offensive tackle, but in my opinion, I think Brugler should have classified Jackson as an offensive guard. And speaking of guards, here are Brugler's top 10 at that position. Speaking of weird, Kelvin Banks, he has as a guard. So he has Donovan Jackson as a tackle, and he has Kelvin Banks as a guard. Very weird, in my opinion. Tate Ratledge, the 3rd-ranked guard, then Jonah Savanea, Miles Frazier, Marcus Bow, Dylan Fairchild, Wyatt Millum, Jalen Rivers, and Emory Jones Jr. But the guy I want to focus on, Kelvin Banks Jr. Why does he have him at a guard? He started at left tackle for the University of Texas for 3 straight seasons. Came in at the combine and measured in, I know it says 6'5" and 1/8, but I believe at the combine he measured in at 6'6". I see it. I guess if you want to move him into guard, that makes sense. He could probably play guard. But a team drafted Kelvin Banks, especially if he goes in the top 20, I would imagine would rather him play at one of the tackle spots. Maybe that's just me. I think he projects better as a tackle than a guard, but Brugler thinks differently, has him as the 2nd-ranked guard and a 1st/2nd round grade for Banks Jr. Another guy that a lot of Texans fans truly do like, Tate Ratledge, guard from Georgia. He has him as his 3rd-ranked guard, a 2nd-round grade, and I know a lot of Texans fans were hoping maybe they could get Ratledge in round 3. Seems like he's going to be one of the first guys to go in round 2. The Texans we'll have to keep an eye on. If Ratledge falls to them in round 2, that could be another intriguing option for this team. Let's look at the center position now. And some of these guys, obviously, center, but also give you that flexibility to also be a guard, a la a Gray Zabel, who is the number 1 ranked center in this draft class, according to Dane Brugler. Jared Wilson from Georgia had an amazing combine. Seth McLaughlin from Ohio State. Drew Kindle, Boston College. Jackson Slater. Joshua Gray, who I think is a really good late-round sleeper. Jonah Monheim from USC. Eli Cox. Jake Majors, who the Texans have met with. And Willie Lampkin. And Gray Zabel, I talked about it on the show earlier this week. Visited with the Houston Texans. Wasn't really reported, but was in the background of an IG video from Caleb Johnson, the first-ranked center, a first-round grade. And I think he gives you, I mean, you're talking about versatility. He might be the most versatile player in the entire NFL draft. Maybe the best center in this draft. Obviously, ranked number 1 by Brugler. Also, can play guard. Has played tackle. 6'5" and 7'8", 312 pounds from North Dakota State. The only worry really is like the jump of talent, but he kind of, quieted all those questions around that from going to the Senior Bowl and whooping up on every single person that challenged him in the offensive line, defensive line drill. So Gray Zabel, I think, is a round 1 lock. I don't even know if he makes it to the Texans pick at 25. That's how much he's rising up draft boards. But if he's there, could be a very interesting selection or choice for the Houston Texans. I want to know, though, what offensive lineman, because they're going to draft 1. Go down in the comment section and let me know. Mine is Donovan Jackson. What O-lineman do you want the Texans to draft and in what round? So don't just say, oh, I want them to get Will Campbell. Well, it's not really possible, right? He's a top 10 pick kind of guy. From all the guys I just laid out there, what O-lineman do you want and in what round would you want to draft them in? Let me know down in the comment section. As we now switch over to the defensive side of the football, let's look at the top edge rushers on Brugler's big board. Abdul Carter, no surprise there, the number 1 ranked edge rusher, a first-round grade. He actually has him as his second best prospect in this draft class. Jalen Walker from Georgia, Shamar Stewart, Mike Green, who he is very high on this edge rusher and defensive line class, very deep. Michael Williams, Donovan Ezeraku, James Pierce Jr., JT Tuimalau, Landon Jackson, and Jordan Birch all are in the top 10 for Brugler's edge rushers. But I want to talk about Shamar Stewart, somebody the Texans brought in for a visit. And I know the numbers don't jump off the page, but he was maybe the best performer at the NFL Combine, had a 9.9 ranking RAS score, relative athletic score, meaning he is an absolute athletic specimen at 6'5", 267 pounds, a first-round grade by Brugler. But this is a huge boomer bust guy with a lot of potential, but a very, very raw prospect coming into this draft class. Another guy who they've met with, 12th ranked edge, Nick Scourton from Texas A&M. He has a second-round grade on him. 37 tackles, 5 sacks this past year, 1 forced fumble for the Aggies. Somebody that the Texans are looking closely at as well. And then somebody else who they've been looking at, who's actually kind of quietly rising up draft boards as well, has been getting a little bit of, end of round 1 hype. Oluwafemi Oladejo from UCLA, 57 tackles, 4.5 sacks. The 13th ranked edge, has a second/third round grade in Brugler's big board, but somebody that you need to be looking at for your Houston Texans. Now let's look at the defensive tackle, or a position where I really do think the Texans are going to take one of these guys early on in the draft. And we look at this list, the Texans have basically met with everybody on this list besides Mason Graham and Derek Harmon, right? They've met with all of these guys in some form of fashion. They haven't officially met with Darius Alexander of Toledo, the 7th ranked defensive tackle, according to Brugler, a second/third round grade for Alexander. But the Texans actually hired his defensive line coach, Frank Oakham, to the staff. So they already have kind of the inside insight on Darius Alexander, somebody who, if he falls to round 3, I think is for sure going to be a Texan. I really like his measurables. A very athletic kid, if I can say that. He's one of the older guys in this draft class. Going to be, I believe, 25, turning 26. Maybe that'll push him down draft boards a little bit, but somebody who has a lot of ties to this Texans coaching staff. Now, let's look at the linebacker top 10 from Brugler, Jahad Campbell. And this was somebody who I said could be a sneaky pick at 25 for the Texans. We know D'Amico Ryans loves him some Alabama cornerbacks. A first, second round grade. He also got injured, so that could push him down draft boards as well. Carson Schlesinger from UCLA, Danny Stutzman from Oklahoma, Jeffrey Bassa from Oregon, Smael Mondon Jr. from Georgia, Demetrius Knight from South Carolina, Chris Paul Jr. from Ole Miss, Kobe King from Penn State, Barrett Carter from Clemson, and then Kane Madrano from UCLA. And way down the list, I had to do some scrolling, but the only person the Texans have brought in for a visit is Easton Mascarenas-Arnold, the 46th ranked linebacker, according to Brugler. He has him as a UDFA grade, but obviously kind of shows you Texans aren't really interested in linebacker. They like what they have right now. They recently signed E.J. Speed in NFL free agency. They have Aziz Al-Shire. They have Henry To'oTo'o. In the last year of rookie contract, Christian Harris, maybe they really feel comfortable with their room right now and what they have in this linebacking core. Let's look at the cornerback room or the cornerback rankings for Dane Brugler. Travis Hunter, number one. He actually has him also as his number one ranked prospect in this entire draft class. Will Johnson from Michigan, Jahdae Barron, Maxwell Harrison, Trey Amos, Azare Thompson, Siobhan Revel Jr., Noel Williams, Jacob Parrish, and Benjamin Morrison round out his top 10. Let's talk about some guys that the Texans have met with, though. Number 7 on this list, Siobhan Revel Jr., the 7th-ranked cornerback, second, third-round grade, was hurt all of this year, really, but still gave you 2 interceptions, 2 pass breakups, I believe in 4 games played for East Carolina, is a very intriguing prospect, kind of has that swarm mentality. I really like if he could fall to round 3, that would be a steal for the Houston Texans. Somebody else that the Texans have brought in for a visit, Mac McWilliams from UCF, the 20th ranked cornerback, a 5th-round grade. So kind of showing the Texans, similar to linebacker, probably more geared towards the end of this draft. They brought in Mac McWilliams. They've also brought in Upton Stout, former UNT guy. Shout out Mean Green right there. Upton Stout. He is from Western Kentucky, the 21st ranked cornerback. 5th-round grade for him. He could be another intriguing option as the Texans go later on in the draft. If we're in round 5, round 6, look for Upton Stout's name as the Texans get closer and closer to their pick in those rounds. Let's look at the top safeties now to round it out on this video. Nick Emanwari, the top safety on the list, which maybe is surprising to a lot of people. I think a lot of people had Malachi Starks penciled in as the top safety. After that combine where he had a perfect RAS score, Nick Emanwari takes the number 1 spot. Then it's Starks, Xavier Watts, Kevin Winston Jr., Billy Bowman, Jonas Sanker, Andrew Makuba, Lathan Ransom, Malachi Moore, and Jalen Reed. Somebody that I like, who I think would be a really good fit with the Houston Texans. I really like Andrew Makuba. I love his versatility. And a 4th-round pick for Makuba, sign me up. 69 tackles, 5 interceptions, 6 pass breakups this past year for the University of Texas defense. He's somebody who I think you can kind of use as a Swiss Army knife, a chess piece to put in different spots. He can be a safety for you. He can play in the nickel. He can be one of those, extra cornerbacks if you need. I really do like Andrew Makuba as a mid to late round option. Another guy who they've met with, Zion Childress from the University of Kentucky. He was the 25th ranked safety, a UDFA according to Brugler. Just somebody else. Late in the draft, round 6, round 7. Look for Childress' name as the Texans come up on the draft whenever they're on the clock, in round 6 or round 7. He's still up there? Could be a pick for your Houston Texans. Now, I know this was a lengthy video. I know this was a long video for a lot of y'all, but I absolutely love the beast. Shout out to Dane Brugler. I implore you, go out there and read some more. If you want more content around the beast, around Brugler's, top guys, I can give you more content like that here on Texans Today. Another reason why you got to go down and hit that subscribe button.